Hi there, this is Tony from pianotone.ca, and this is going to be a piano shootout between a couple of super popular pianos, the Yamaha P-125 and the Roland FP-30X. Now, I've never done this before, but just for fun, for each area that I go through, I'm going to give each piano a score out of 5, and then we'll add it up at the end. Let's check it out. Okay, voices. The Yamaha P-125 has 24 voices that include 4 piano voices and 4 electric piano voices, and has 192 notes of polyphony. The Roland FP-30X has quite a few more voices with a total of 56. That includes 10 pianos, 4 electric pianos, and 256 notes of polyphony. The P-125 uses Yamaha's Pure CF sound engine, which samples the Yamaha CF3S concert grand piano. Uses 4-layer sampling, which is an upgrade to the prior version of the P-125, the P-115, which used a 3-layer sample. This basically provides better dynamics and smoother transitions between samples. The FP-30X uses Roland's supernatural sound engine. It's worth noting as well that the FP-30X received an upgraded processor from the FP-30 that not only doubled the polyphony from 128 to 256, but basically allowed Roland to significantly enhance their piano sounds in particular. While whether you like or don't like a particular piano sound is totally a matter of personal taste and opinion, it's really pretty clear to me that the FP-30X's sound engine is more advanced than what's being used on the P-125. So let's take a listen to this quick comparison of the main piano sound on each keyboard, as well as each piano's version of a Rhodes and a Wurlitzer electric piano, and maybe a quick bass and piano split comparison. Okay, so I own a P-125, and I absolutely love that piano sounds, but I can definitely hear more dynamic detail, nuance, and warmth in the FP-30X's main piano sound. As far as the electric pianos go, they're a lot closer. They're both really good. I do definitely think I prefer the Rhodes on the P-125, and the Wurlitzer is kind of even on both. I'd probably lean a little bit towards the Roland on that one. But all personal taste and opinions aside, the fact that the Roland has a more advanced sound engine, more polyphony, and a more detailed and nuanced main piano sound, I'm going to give the Roland a 5 and the Yamaha a 4 on sounds. Okay, key action. Both of these pianos have 88 full-sized, fully weighted, and graded hammer action keys. The P-125 uses Yamaha's dual sensor GHS action and has shiny plastic key tops and 3 layers of touch sensitivity. The FP-30X uses Roland's PHA4 triple sensor action with escapement and has 5 layers of touch sensitivity and a matte finish on the keys. So just like with the voices, we've got a situation where one of these actions, the Roland PHA4, is technically more advanced than the other one. But that difference actually has little bearing on which of these actions each person might prefer, because I think even more so than the voices, which piano action somebody prefers is going to be very different from one person to the next. To try and give you an idea of who might prefer one of these over the other, the Roland action is definitely a heavier feel, while the Yamaha action is quite a bit lighter. I think most reviewers would agree with me that the Roland action is a much closer approximation of an acoustic piano than the Yamaha action is. But the next question is, do you even care about that? Do you play or hope to play acoustic pianos on a regular basis? And do you enjoy that type of action and want to be able to transition as easily as possible back and forth between your digital piano and an acoustic piano? If that describes you, then you are quite likely going to both prefer and be better off with the FP-30X. Now, in my case, I almost never play acoustic pianos, so whether the action on my piano is super close to an acoustic piano or not doesn't really matter to me. So my personal preference is actually the lighter, faster playing action of the Yamaha GHS. I find the Roland action to be heavier on the way down than Yamaha's GHS, but I also find that keys seem to take longer to return back up than the Yamaha does. So if I'm playing something like slow blues, then it's fine on the Roland, but if I try to play faster 50s rock type stuff, then I find the combination of the keys being a bit heavier and taking a bit longer to return back up makes it a bit more challenging and actually kind of tiring to play. So even though this is my personal preference, given that Roland's PHA4 action is technically more advanced than the Yamaha GHS, I'll still give Roland an even bigger edge in this category at 5-3. Okay, the user interface. The Yamaha P-125 has a quite frankly fantastic user interface that is a combination of panel buttons and function key combinations. What makes it fantastic is that the most common tasks, like selecting voices, layering, splitting, etc., is fast, easy, and intuitive. The voices are broken down into 6 categories, and there are 4 variations within each. You simply cycle through the options for each category by pressing that category's button. So for example, I'm on the main piano right now, and none of these variation lights are lit up. So then as I press it, then it cycles through the different voices. So these are all different piano voices. Same with electric piano. That's going to be a Rhodes. That's going to be a DX. And then a Wurlitzer, etc. To layer voices, you simply press 2 of the category buttons at the same time. So now I'm layered with my most recent selection in piano and my most recent selection in the strings category, and I haven't selected anything in there yet, so it's going to be the default strings patch. Let's say I wanted to layer it with a pad instead. I would cycle through the strings category until I get to the third variation, which is the pad. And now when I press piano and strings, I get that for my layer. And splitting is also super easy. You just press bass and you get a bass voice in the left hand. And there's different bass options as well. And then if you want to split a different voice with the bass, you would choose whatever, say I wanted an organ with the second bass. Etc. So super, super easy to use. And the best thing is that you can glance at the keyboard and instantly know what you have chosen. Now, to be fair, you don't get a visual indication of what is piano variation number 2, like seeing the name of a specific voice on a menu screen, but you do get an easy to see visual indication that you're on voice 2. And only 4 variations within each of these categories. It's not really a hard thing to get used to those after you've owned the keyboard for a while. Okay, so before going over how other tasks are done, let's talk about how the FP-30X selects voices. The FP-30X has more than twice the number of voices, and they're split into only 3 categories: piano, electric piano, and other. You select these voices by holding down the category that you want, and then looking up in the manual on this chart to see what piano key you need to press to get the voice that you want. So for example, if I want a ragtime piano, I hold down piano, and then I press the F1 key. Then now I have ragtime. And once I've done that, the only visual indication I get of my choice is that I've chosen one of the 12 piano options within the piano category. Now to layer voices, kind of the same idea as the Yamaha. You press the 2 category buttons. So I'll press piano and other, and that's going to give me the most recently selected voice in the piano category and the most recently selected one in the other category. And the default for that, if I haven't selected anything, is strings. So I'm going to get ragtime piano with strings. But what if I want something different? I'm going to have to look up the key combination again for each voice that I want in the manual and select them individually, then press the 2 category buttons together. So for example, if I wanted to layer that ragtime piano with a pad, then I would need to hold down other, then look up in the manual what is the correct key for a pad, and that's A#1. So I would press that. And then now I press the 2 buttons again, and now I should get a ragtime piano over a pad. So you've probably guessed that you're not going to be able to layer 2 voices that are within the same category together just using the keyboard interface. Technically, that's the same thing with the Yamaha P-125, except because you've got these extra categories as opposed to just 3, especially other, which has a whole bunch of voices in it. It's not really anywhere near the issue on the P-125 that it is on the FP-30X. Now, to split voices on the FP-30X, you just press the split button, and if you haven't edited this choice, you're going to get a bass guitar by default. Now I got my ragtime piano in the right hand. Okay, so back to the P-125. How do you set the volume? Well, pretty straightforward. You've got a nice smooth volume slider control there with a nice indication of where you are. On the FP-30X, you've got these volume up and down buttons. And the only indication of what your current volume is these 5 lights. But these lights don't actually give you a specific indication of your current volume. There's actually 100 volume levels on the FP-30X, so these buttons are basically only an approximation. Both keyboards have a basic single-song MIDI recorder on board for quickly capturing an idea. They work the same. You basically hit the record button and play, and then you can play it back, that type of thing. And both keyboards also have some labeled keys that allow you to control some settings without having to grab your user manual. They both have labeled keys for setting your metronome speed. Add a touch on the P-125 as you actually get audible feedback on your choices as you hit those keys. So for example, if I hold down metronome and I want to set a tempo of 100,
1, 0, 0.
That's pretty cool. And on the FP-30X, you have labeled keys for transposing the keyboard and editing the reverb depth. Those are both actually pretty handy to have. And those are the only examples, albeit minor ones, where the FP-30X's user experience doesn't get completely annihilated by the P-125s. For any less seldom used settings, both pianos are going to require that you look up key combinations in the manual. So it's pretty clear who wins the user interface battle. I actually traded in my FP30 for a P125 mostly because of the user interface, and Roland did not upgrade the user interface at all on the FP30X, which is a shame. I was going to score this as 4-1 for Yamaha because the built-in rhythms and accompaniment on the Yamaha do require key combinations. But since the FP30X has no rhythms or accompaniment, that's not really fair, so 5-1 for Yamaha in this section. If I owned a Roland FP-30X, I would have to use their app to control the piano all the time. So the only reason I'm giving their user interface a 1 instead of a 0 is because A, it exists, and B, it has transpose buttons labeled. Okay, connectivity. Okay, in all honesty, another reason that I traded in my FP30 on a P125 was because the connectivity options on the P125 were far better. But Roland has made some big improvements from the FP30 to the FP30X and now actually has better connectivity. Both pianos have 2 headphone ports, but a nice touch on the FP30X is that it has both common sizes, which can save you from having to buy an adapter. It's got a 1/4 inch and an 1/8 inch headphone port. Both pianos have left and right line outs to connect to external audio. This was a big addition to the FP30X. That's going to be something that gigging pianists will be very happy to see. Both pianos have an audio interface built into the USB to device port, so that cable now transmits audio as well as MIDI. This was a massive addition to the FP30X, which provides an audio in source and an option to send high-quality direct audio out to a recording device with just a USB cable. And both pianos also have a generic 1/4 inch sustain pedal input as well as an input for a triple pedal unit. And the Roland has even more connectivity to offer. It's got the same Bluetooth MIDI that the FP30 had, which, to be honest, I don't ever use Bluetooth MIDI because it's just too laggy. But the FP30X also has added in Bluetooth audio in. So this is a wireless option as opposed to the USB cable to stream audio into the piano. This is an awesome addition. And to top it off, the FP30X has the ability to play back WAV or MP3 files from a USB flash drive, which is not something that the Yamaha can do. I was originally going to score this as a 5-3 win for the Roland, but I've changed it to 4-3 because of the following. The Bluetooth MIDI is laggy enough that it's not useful, and it also tends to lose its connection randomly, and there's a bizarre issue with the USB audio interface for incoming audio. For some reason, when you stream audio into the piano on the FP30X using a cable, you lose the ability to change the source volume on your device. I've never seen this issue with any other keyboard before, and it almost blew my ears off because I tried to adjust the source volume on my iPad when it came in super loud and was unable to. With connectivity, stability and dependability is important, so this is a 4-3 win for the Roland. Okay, speakers. The FP30X has 22 watts of speaker power compared to the P125's 14 watts. Both sets of speakers sound awesome, and I would give the Roland a 5-3 win here, except for the fact that the speakers only face downwards, while the P125 has speakers that face up and down. While downward-facing bassy speakers can be super cool bouncing off the floor, having tweeters facing the player like on the P125 would make a huge difference. So I'm cutting that score to a 4-3 for the Roland, just due to the extra wattage. Here's a quick video comparing the two sets of speakers, just as picked up by my iPhone's built-in mic. Okay, other onboard features. As far as other onboard features go, both pianos have the usual basic reverb with adjustable depth available. The Roland adds a very subtle chorus or brilliance option as well that the Yamaha doesn't have. But the glaring extra feature is that the Yamaha P-125 has 20 rhythms with optional bass accompaniment, intros and endings built in. While you do have to use key combinations to select these, they work extremely well, and I use them almost constantly when I practice. The FP-30 actually did have 8 or 9 built-in rhythms with no optional accompaniment, but those have been removed from the FP-30X. So instead of making this a 5-to-1 score for the P-125, which was my original thought, my next section is going to be comparing the companion apps for these two pianos, and the Roland app does actually add in some accompaniment functionality. So I'm just going to score this category 1-0 for the P-125, since this feature is available without the need to use an app. Okay, apps. The app for the P-125 is Yamaha's Smart Pianist app. This app is absolutely fantastic. I actually did a complete review on just the app if you want to check it out. It offers a ton of features and adds some significant functionality to the P-125. It's got a super nice visual, smooth and intuitive interface for controlling your voices, so layering, splitting, mixing relative volumes, etc. Super nice visual interface for controlling your rhythms. And for recording, you can easily record MIDI and audio. Chord detection, you can have the app analyze a song in your device's song library, or even just a WAV file, including an audio song that you've recorded. And it's going to create an interactive chord chart for you to play along with. You can even slow it down, speed it up, you can even transpose it. That's a massive feature. Sheet music generation. In addition to being able to provide interactive sheet music for you to play along with built-in songs, if you record a MIDI track, it will generate sheet music for what you played, which is super cool. And last but by no means least, the Smart Pianist adds unlimited registrations to the P-125. You can use this to memorize and name as many custom setups as you need. For a gigging musician, that's a huge feature. I use this all the time, not only for my song repertoire, but also for practice exercises that I do. I'll set up an appropriate practice rhythm, tempo, and voices for pretty much anything I'm working on. So the Smart Pianist app is fantastic. But another thing that is definitely worth mentioning, this app is rock solid. It is always in perfect sync with the piano, which is actually a big issue with Casio's apps. It never crashes on me, and it's super dependable. The app for the FP-30 was Piano Partner 2. It was an okay app, nowhere near Smart Pianist. When the FP-30X was released, Roland had a new app called Piano Every Day. I was expecting to be reviewing that when I rented the FP-30X, but as it turns out, in late 2022, Roland is no longer supporting Piano Every Day, and now they've got another app called Roland Piano App. So I had high hopes for this app to alleviate my personal dislike of the onboard user interface, and it does help, but to be honest, I preferred Piano Partner 2 over the new app. The new app, to be honest, doesn't do anything of note that Piano Partner 2 didn't do, and the interface is in much need of a facelift. It's all small text with a bunch of unused black space. Piano Partner 2 was a much more intuitive, smoother, nicer user interface. But this new app does give you the ability to set up your voices, layers, splits, adjust relative volumes, all that kind of thing. It also has a recording feature built in, but it's MIDI only, no audio, and you don't get sheet music for your recorded songs. You get a Synthesia falling note kind of an interface. It does have the ability to display sheet music for included songs that you play along with, and there's a couple of simple learning games for naming sheet music notes and naming notes by ear. Something else the app provides is access to a bank of 127 older MIDI sounds. This is, to me, isn't of much value. The sounds on the piano are much better. But the big feature for me was that the app includes rhythms and accompaniment. There are the usual arranger keyboard options available. You can choose between different styles, adjust the tempo, and include an intro and an ending, play with the full accompaniment or just with the drums. And there are 2 chord detection options available. One thing to note, though, if you're using this with a Bluetooth connection instead of a cable connection, don't bother using the accompaniment, just use the drums because there's too much lag for the app to be able to keep up with your chord changes. So the Roland app does allow you to control your sounds, and it adds some rhythm functionality, which is fine. It doesn't, however, give you the ability to add registrations, which is a huge shame. But there's an even bigger issue. The app will not work unless you have an internet connection on your device. I have no idea why Roland did this, but given that the onboard user interface is pretty sparse, In my opinion, you really need this app to be functional, especially if you're intending to use the FP-30X to busk or gig with, so that you can choose voices and make settings easily. Given that you need an internet connection to even open the app, that means if you're performing in a location where there's no internet, you're going to have to use data just to control your piano. I can understand why some functionality of the app might need an internet connection, but for controlling your piano, selecting sounds, etc., I've got to say I'm not very impressed with that. I hope Roland deals with that issue. So I've got to say Smart Pianist totally outshines the Roland Piano app. I was going to score this at 5-2 for Yamaha since the Roland does allow you to connect wirelessly with MIDI, but given that I had the MIDI connection drop multiple times while I was using it and that you need an internet connection just for the app to even work, I'm sorry, Roland, but this is 5-1 for Yamaha. You really need to go back to the app drawing board. Okay, the summary. Let's check our scoreboard. I've got the P-125 outscoring the Roland FP-30X at 24-20. And note that I've added a third column for the P-125A, which was recently released as a hopefully temporary replacement for the P-125. It's the exact same piano in every single way, except Yamaha removed the audio interface. So as a result, that piano goes from 3-1 on connectivity and also loses a point in the apps section because the cool audio features in Smart Pianist, such as recording audio and generating chord charts, aren't going to be available with the P-125A. But you will notice it still is 2 points ahead of the FP-30X. So even though it's pretty clear that I personally prefer the P-125, I did try to be as objective as possible with these scores. I personally prefer the key action on the P-125, but I still gave Roland the win on that since it's a more technically advanced option. But all silly scoring aside, these are both good pianos, and which one is the best option for you depends on how you would rank all of these categories, not me. In my opinion, given that the Roland does sell for more, the most likely reason for someone to be willing to spend more on the FP-30X is because the heavier, more realistic PHA-4 action is super important to you. And if that is the case, then great, you're going to love the FP-30X. One other thing to keep in mind is pricing. Pretty much everywhere, the FP-30X is going to sell for more than the P-125, but how much more does seem to fluctuate quite a bit depending where you are. For example, in the US, the FP-30X sells for $100 more than the P-125, but in Canada, the FP-30X sells for over $300 Canadian more than the P-125, which is basically a $225 US difference. So keep an eye on your pricing. So I hope this comparison was helpful to you in making a decision. I've left links to my reviews on the FP-30X and the Yamaha P-125 and also the Smart Pianist app. And I've also left a link to a video I made explaining the differences between the P-125 and the P-125A. Because if you are leaning that way, it's important that you understand those differences. If you're on the fence between the FP-30X and the P-125, you may lean more towards the FP-30X if you aren't able to find a P-125 and you care about the features that have been lost with the P-125A. So anyways, that's it for this video. Please feel free to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. That does really help me out. Thanks for stopping by. Happy piano playing and happy piano shopping. Have an awesome day.